Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Have Manchester United received a glimmer of hope? Well, Manchester United fans received a glimmer of hope in relation to Kamara from Marseille. Also, Ander Herrera to come back to Manchester United on loan. Would you do that or not? Jesse Lingard furious with how Manchester United have acted in relation to him. We'll also be talking about the latest from Donny van der Beek, what it means for Martial and Donny going forward, Rangnick's big letdown, and why a midfielder is not just about a midfielder to start games. It's about options from the bench as well. Lots to get into. As of course, we'll also be taking your questions as we always do. But first of all, we're sponsored by Manscaped on the show tonight, and I tell you what, they are far better at trimming and making things look better than Manchester United's board is. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. Anyway, Manscaped is the leader in male grooming and is supported and trusted by over 4 million men worldwide, looking on point in the area that really matters. So if you're looking to trim your grass to make it look bigger, then Manscaped is certainly the brand for you, and the Lawnmower 4.0 provides the answer. So what's great about the Lawnmower 4.0? Well, it's got a new multifunctional on and off switch, plus a travel lock for those people who like to travel, the ability to turn the LED light on and off for a more precise shave, although I wouldn't do it in the dark, why would you? The new trimmer allows you to adjust the lengths as well so that you can trim it short or long, you know. And it's sleek with a two-toned matte finish, and it's even got a lovely chromed Manscaped logo on it, very fancy as well. It's also, of course, it's got its wireless charging system, which uses electromagnetic induction, which again helps battery life as well. And it also comes as part of the Lawnmower 4.0 performance package, which includes the Weed Whacker, the Crop Preserver, the Crop Reviver, very comfy boxer shorts, and the travel bag, which is absolutely fantastic. And as you know, I do like the Weed Whacker because this is what it does. I can't demonstrate that one. We get shut down. But I can demonstrate this one. Basically, it's for nasal hair. And if you're of a certain age, you need to get it under control. Anyway, because Manscaped care about everyone that watches the United Stand, they're giving you a huge 20% off plus free worldwide shipping when you use the code UNITEDSTAND at checkout. So what are you waiting for? Head over to the link in the description. Check out Manscaped. Fantastic products. And you too could be part of the 4 million men worldwide using Manscaped for your male grooming. Trim your grass to make your yard look bigger. 20% off with the code UNITEDSTAND. And as I said, fantastic products. I really recommend the Weed Whacker, but you know, that's good as well. Anyway, let's move on with the show. Thanks to Manscaped. So we're going to start off. I suppose, look, I'm not going to freestyle it. There's lots I want to talk about tonight, but and I really want to talk about Ralf Rangnick and how he's been let down and you know, the midfield in a little bit of depth. Sexy bridge, says Apollo 30X. But I just want to talk about Babou Kamara of Marseille, early 20s, French midfielder. We've been linked to him. Now, look, there's a lot going on around Kamara at the moment, and United's name is being thrown around. I'm going to give you an honest feeling on this at the moment. I don't believe that Manchester United are doing anything in relation to players coming in. I'm hearing people talking about negotiations with Marseille. I'm hearing people talking about Man United being the front runners. And I'm also hearing that Aston Villa and Roma really like him. I feel that what's going on here is probably agent driven, or maybe even Marseille driven. Now, well, the reason I say that is that Marseille will lose him for nothing in the summer. If I was in charge of Marseille, I would be trying to drum up some business, because if they get £10 million for Kamara now instead of nothing in the summer, £10 million to a club like Marseille is absolutely huge. Now, what I would say about this is that Kamara is a massive Marseille fan. You know, he loves the club. And yes, there's a big payday in the summer and the agent's going to get a big payday. But I do think with some players, when they love the club that they're at, they might just feel that, look, they've come through Marseille. I believe he came through the youth system. I think he's been there the whole time, I think. But I definitely know he's a Marseille fan. And he might just think, you know what, if the right wages come in and the right offer comes in, I'll take it because I get what I need and so does Marseille, instead of me going for nothing in the summer. He might have that sort of mentality. So Kamara leaving Marseille in the next few days would not surprise me. But at this moment in time, it would surprise me if it was Manchester United. That doesn't mean it won't be Manchester United, but from what we're hearing and what I've been told, we're working flat out on moving players out. And look, United need to be sponsored by Manscaped because they're rubbish at trimming anything and to make it look better. And the way they're trimming this squad is lethargic and slow. They're having a tea break after every bloody every chat. Lingard should have been gone today. Donny should be gone, by tomorrow, and yet neither of those two players are going. Eric Bay's now out of the AFCON with Ivory Coast, so he's going to be coming back looking to get a move over the next few days as well. So United are going to swamp themselves with removing players and leave no time to bring players in, even if they wanted to. So yes, watch what's going on with Kamara, I would say that, but it may not be Manchester United. I think he might go in the next few days, because ultimately all Kamara will want is the wages that he feels he's deserved. And I tried to explain this to somebody last night. They were like, there was a story came out last night that Kamara wants 150 grand a week, right? And people were going, well, he's not worth that, avoid it. And I was like, do people actually understand how transfers work these days? Because Kamara's probably 100 grand a week player, 80, 90, 100 grand a week. That's probably what he's worth, okay? But he's also worth about 20 to 30 million pounds. You're going to get him for less than 10. So why shouldn't he ask for an extra 50 grand a week? 50 grand a week is 200 grand a month extra, which works out at what? Just over 2 million pounds a year. Over 3 years, that's only 6 million. If you're getting him for 10 and you're paying him an extra 6 million in wages, it's still 16 million instead of having to pay him 100 grand a week and pay Marseille 20 to 25 million. So you're still quids in. I think people get really agitated by wages, but just because Harry Maguire's on 200 grand a week, or Juan Mata's on 100 grand a week, or Jadon Sancho's on 300 grand a week, it's all relative. When you give Harry Maguire 200 grand a week and you're paying 80 million pounds to Leicester and agent fees, that's a lot of money. But when you're giving a player 150 grand a week, but you're getting them really cheap because they're on the edge of their contract, it's all relative. It all adds up in a different way. You can't compare one deal to the other. Who's the mysterious CDM we're waiting for in the summer? I doubt we'll pay 100 million for Rice. Getting a 6 for our Champions League is crucial, says Hamza. I think Declan Rice is probably the player that we're looking at. But I think Lingard's on about 80 grand a week. So whatever that works out to be a year, you do the maths. So yeah, look, a lot of people talking about Kamara. There's a few rumours floating around. I feel that this is probably driven by the agent and the club, so I'm not too confident about that at the moment. And I do feel that United are looking to remove players. How do we get the Glazers out as fans, says Aidan McKeown. Well, look, we'll talk about that, but I just want to say that it says Rangnick's transfer setback. I think it says let down on the thumbnail. I just want to hammer that home a little bit tonight. I want to hammer it home so people understand, because I think that everybody I've spoken to, every credible journalist I've read over the last 2 weeks has basically come to the same conclusion. Ralph Rangnick had told the club that we need to buy a midfielder this January, and at this moment in time he hasn't got it. So whatever you think about Ralph Rangnick, whether you're pro Ollie, whether you're pro Rangnick, whether you're unsure, whether whatever you're, and we'll all have different angles, I just want it to be made clear that from absolutely everything I've been told and everything we're reading, Ralph Rangnick did want a midfielder and asked for a midfielder this summer, this January, and it's not been delivered. So just keep that in your hat, because it's very important in relation to what I'm about to say next. Martial will win Sevilla the league. I'd love it if he did, why wouldn't I? Most Manchester United players, when they leave, I want them to do well. I can't, maybe Tevez, definitely Tevez at Man City, Di Maria, there's a couple of others, but most of them, even the Darmians, you want them to go and do well. But yes, that just reminds me to talk about Ander Herrera, but I'm onto a point here. So the reason I wanted to just start this topic I'm going to talk about letdown of Rangnick is to just talk about the importance of a holding midfielder for Manchester United over the next few months of the season. And the importance is, obviously, we need a holding midfielder. I don't think McTominay's a holding midfielder. I don't think Fred's holding midfielder, and I don't think Matic has got the legs to play as a holding midfielder. So we're playing a system now with one holding midfielder, 2 number 8s, and that holding midfielder is very important. If you had Fabinho or Rodri, you'd be laughing. Okay, we don't even have a Romu. So we don't have a specialist CDM, let alone one of ability. So that's obviously the big thing that riles everybody. We don't actually have, we're Manchester United, supposedly one of the biggest clubs in the world, we actually don't have a specialist in one of the most important positions in the team. So that is why we need to buy a holding midfielder, of course. But there is a secondary conversation point here as to why we need one as well. The priority one is we need one, we haven't got one, we need one. Okay, the second point is options. And I don't hear people talking about this enough. It's options as well. Manchester United against, let's go to the most recent game, West Ham. 0-0. We need to win, really. A draw is better for West Ham than it is for us. We need to win that game. Ralph Rangnick has the ability to take off players and add to Ronaldo and Greenwood. He can add Rashford, Martial, Cavani. He's got 3 strikers on his bench of differing qualities and different standards, okay? On top of that, he's also got Lingard and Donny van der Beek, who can play as attacking midfielders. He literally, on that bench, has got five options to go and attack. Admittedly, at the moment, we're a little bit short on defence. We only had Phil Jones, but we have got 2 full-backs when everyone's fit, and we've got 4 or 5 centre-backs. So we've got options there. Goalkeeper, he's even got 3 goalkeepers. He's got Henderson and Heaton, as well as David De Gea. In the midfield, we have got no options. In that holding midfield, we've got no options. And this is why we see Scott McTominay and Fred mostly playing 90 minutes of football, because we have got no option. We'll see Matic coming on for the last 20 minutes to calm the game down. But actually, if Scott McTominay pulls his hamstring after the first half an hour, who's going to come on and play at holding midfield? If Scott McTominay's having a bad game or Fred's having a bad game, who's going to come on and play holding midfield? It's not just the fact that we haven't got a specialist. We also don't have options when somebody's playing bad. And I think this has cost us a lot of points this season. Because, I like Fred and McTominay. I think they're good squad players in their right position. But holding midfield for me is not their right position. And even in their right position, I think they should be on the bench. But where are the options in that midfield? Everyone talks about the Bagel FC and we need to bring a midfielder in. And we do. And that's the headline. We don't have a specialist. But also, we don't have options anyway. There are no other options. Even if we know we've got players playing there that aren't good enough, but when they do turn in their terrible performance, we don't even have an option to change them, or if they get injured. So this is why it's not just the headline of we need a specialist holding midfielder, because we do. We also need options in the midfield that we don't actually have, and I think it's a huge issue. Out of interest, if the Hotometer was in action, what would your percentage be that we sign any midfielders, says Joshua Bellwater? I haven't given up hope. I've always said I can see 2 or 3 players leaving United in January and 1 coming in. That, to me, is logical. 2 in, 1 out, 1 in, 2 out, or 1 in, 3 out, maybe 1 in, 4 out. So I'm still working to that basis until it hits Monday. I think on Monday we'll establish quite quickly whether we're going to do anything, although United can do things quite late. We've seen it done before. So I'm still working to that logic, but if you want the Hotometer, probably at the moment 30% chance that we'll do anything. I'd maybe 25. But these things change day by day. I wouldn't be surprised if we lose a player this week that we're not expecting to lose. So there's going to be a lot going on. Spurs still haven't bought anybody. Arsenal haven't bought anybody. That there's not a lot going on at the moment, but there's a hell of a lot going on. So I still think it's possible. Is there anyone in the under-23s or under-21s that could have a go? Not at the moment, Stuart. Anyone that could have a go would be on loan. One thing I did want to just mention, I don't know where this story is coming from. I think it was, is Gareth Bale still on the Hotometer, says Robert McCormack. I think he's on the golf course, mate. There was mention of Ander Herrera going on loan to, I think it was a London club. It may have been Spurs. And apparently, I think The Athletic mentioned it and said that he wouldn't want to go to anyone other than Manchester United. And I think a couple of people have said, whoa, get him to Manchester United then. Would I take Ander Herrera to Manchester United? And the answer is 100% yes on loan till the summer. I would do that because he's better than what we have. So yes, I would. I don't think it's the right answer. I think it's a short-term answer. But if I said to you, you've got 3 options. You've got McTominay, Fred and Matic to be your holding midfield options for the rest of the season. You've got bring in a Kamara or a Zakaria as a new signing to add to your options as a second option. Or as third option, you bring in a player like Ander Herrera on loan till the summer to supplement the midfield. I would go with option 2, buying a player like Zakaria or Kamara. My next option would be 3, bring in Ander Herrera on loan. And my worst option would be do nothing. So I would bring him in. I'd rather and think there's no excuse not to buy a player. But as a second option, I would do. I don't know whether it's realistic, but and I don't know what you think in the chat. But I definitely would bring Ander Herrera in rather than do nothing. This is a guy I've seen play this season in the Champions League very well. I don't know why PSG would want to loan him out. I don't actually think it's even an option. But of course I would take him. We never should have let him go in the first place. And he'd be our best midfielder by a long way in that sort of engine room area. He'd be very good at actually just sitting there in the midfield and conducting things. So, yeah, I would take him, but I don't think there's any reality of it actually happening. And it seems like a lot of people agree on that. But it certainly wouldn't be my number one option. Just wanted to mention as well, while we're talking about the midfield, Donny van de Beek, what's going on with that? I mean, Fabrizio said it last night and he said it again today. Ongoing, it's not dead in the water. It's ongoing. They've actually moved it on now. It's now talking about salary allocation. What that means is United and Crystal Palace are talking about what percentage of the salary will be paid, because United will only loan players if people cover the full salary. I don't know whether you've ever played Football Manager or FIFA, but when you get a player on loan, you do negotiate the percentage, and some clubs are quite happy to pay half the wages. In fact, if you're getting to Heath Chong on loan at Birmingham, sometimes United might go, well, you know what, it's a good move for one of our young players, we'll pay half his wages. In this case, I think United will not want to be paying any percentage of the wage, so I would imagine Palace will have to pay all his wages and maybe a bit of a loan fee, but apparently that's being negotiated at the moment. But what I can tell you is that Patrick Vieira is personally pushing this one big time. And you know what? It's weird. It's really weird with Donny, because I even was looking today at Crystal Palace fixtures, seeing if they clashed with United. And I think they're playing Norwich. They've got an FA Cup game, but their first Premier League game is Norwich on the Wednesday night, and we play on the Tuesday night. And I was like, great, I'm doing a watch along if it happens. And I will. I bloody will. I will watch it, because you know what? It's not, somebody said to me, I actually quote tweeted it on Twitter today. They were like, it's so funny. Goldbridge has been going on about how good Donny van de Beek is for ages. He sold McTominay on his United career mode to Palace, and now McTominay's a key man for Rangnick and Donny's going on loan to Palace. And I did have to laugh, but I did actually quote tweet it and say, these sort of fans deserve to fight for fourth for the next decade, because I don't believe McTominay will ever get us any higher than fourth. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But I did believe when we bought Donny van de Beek, we were buying one of the best up-and-coming midfielders in Europe who might be able to get us into races with City. Obviously, that's failed miserably so far. But what intrigues me about Van de Beek, and I 100% agree that we should be moving him on, and I 100% agree that for whatever reason, Ollie and Rangnick value McTominay and Fred more, I don't feel as a fan I've been satisfied in the Donny van de Beek situation, and I don't trust United's coaches, to be honest. And I'm not talking about the managers. I don't trust Manchester United players. I don't trust the dressing room. I don't trust the coaches, and I don't trust the board. And I'd rather make my own mind up about players. So if Donny van de Beek goes to Palace and starts games for them, I have to, for my own mental well-being, in a footballing sense, I have to watch him play 90 minutes at least for Palace, just to see if I was right, if there is a player there that's good enough to play in the Premier League. And there might not be, but I think many people would agree. I need to see it with my own eyes. So I hope he does go to Palace, and I hope we get to see him, because I think it would be. They just need, it's like not knowing, isn't it? I think once we know, we can move on. But I can't end this chapter with Donny without knowing whether we had a player there or not. And in some ways, I don't know what I want the outcome to be. I'm not really somebody who wants him to go and be brilliant for Palace and go, told you so, United. But I just want to see what he's all about, to be honest. Apparently, Lingard's not very happy. We spoke about this last night. There was actually there was a couple of things I read about Lingard today. Herrera knows we're not a real football club. Said it himself. Bruno will say it when he goes, and I expect Donny will if he doesn't come back, says P. Reid. Interestingly, on Ander Herrera, I don't think United would bring him back. The reason is I think they would see that as an admission of failure, that they shouldn't have let him go in the first place. He said some quite damning things about Manchester United. I don't think that will happen. I just was talking about a loan deal. Somebody was mentioning Matuidi. Matuidi's available and he's like 32, 33, 34. I was like, God, no. We're Manchester United trying to get top four. On that top four thing, quite interestingly, our rearranged game against Brighton's been added in this month. So we've got a really big opportunity. We're in fourth place at the moment. We're playing 5 Premier League games in February. I think Spurs are only playing 2 or 3. I think Chelsea are playing 1 and Arsenal are playing 3 as well. So if we win our 5 Premier League games in February, yes, there'll be a lot of teams with games in hand on us, but we'd have points on the board, and we'd probably be 3rd. So we know how difficult March is. So yeah, we've got a great opportunity. We've got Burnley away, so we're playing Borough a week on Friday, Then we play Burnley on the Tuesday in the league, Southampton on the Saturday at home. Then we play Brighton at home on the Tuesday. Then we're playing Leeds away on the Sunday. And then we're playing Watford at home. So we've got basically Brighton, Southampton, Watford at home, Leeds and Burnley away. Why shouldn't we get 15 points? I know people say we won't, but why shouldn't we get 15 points? There's a big opportunity there. And we've got to grab it. Pogba will be back as well. I was going to talk about Lingard. So Lingard, this is from the ESPN. Lingard is upset at the emergence of a video on social media which appears to show Rangnick dismissing the midfielder because he will leave in the summer. And sources insist the deal is not yet dead and the ball is in Newcastle's court. Jesse Lingard feels let down and disrespected by Manchester United after a proposed loan move was on the verge of collapse. Also, United value Lingard as a £50 million player. And this is their justification as to why they want 12 million as a relegation clause. So Newcastle are prepared to cover all of Lingard's £75,000 a week wages and pay a considerable loan fee. But Manchester United also want a substantial bonus should Newcastle avoid relegation. It's all a mess. It's all a bloody mess. And, you know, I was talking about this afternoon, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And ultimately, I think this just comes down to incompetence with Manchester United again. Look, Matt Judge has been at that club for years. He's chief negotiator. Murta has been at that club for years. I know he's only been director of football for a year, but he's actually been doing a similar role for a long time. There is no new people at Manchester United bringing any different negotiation skills to what we've had for the last 5 years. None. So think about every summer and every January where you've been pulling your hair out about how incompetent we are at getting deals over the line. Why would it change? The same people are still in charge. If there's any truth in this, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, first of all, Man United value Jesse Lingard as a £50 million player. Well, when you think about it, they did pay £80 million for Harry Maguire, so they're probably not wrong if they're using that logic. But in a real world, Jesse Lingard is never worth £50 million. He's 29. He's never consistently played as a first-team player for anybody. You know, half a season here, half a season there. Sometimes through no fault of his own. He is never, ever, ever a £50 million player. Never in a million years. At top, even if he had 3 years on his contract, I would say £25 million. He is not a £50 million player. So whoever is valuing him at that is an idiot at Manchester United, if there's any truth in that. As for the relegation clause, who do they think they are? Jesse Lingard leaves Manchester United for nothing in 5 months. Nothing. Nil. No wages covered. No compensation. Nothing. He's going for nothing in 5 months. 5 months before he goes, Newcastle are willing to cover his wages for the rest of the season, which is going to save you a couple of £1,000,000. And on top of that, they're willing to give you £5 million for the loan. You're going to get £5 million and his wages covered instead of nothing in the summer. Take it. What prat thinks you can add a relegation clause in, and as well as the £5 million and the wages covered, you can have another £10 million if Newcastle stay up? It's greed, it's stupidity, and it all comes down to the fact that they're trying to cover their own arse for their incompetence for not selling him for 20 million last summer. I just don't know where we're going. And I actually agree with Lingard on this. If there's any truth in it, United are just behaving like prats. Absolute prats. How can you try and get a combined 14 million from Newcastle for Jesse Lingard when he's out of contract in the summer? Just get him out, get his wages covered, get a few million, and take what you can do from the mistake that you made in the summer last year. As for the clip, I've seen the clip of Ralph Rangnick, and I think I mentioned it last night. There is a United fan who's being filmed outside the ground talking to Rangnick, and he basically says something along the lines of, "Oh, please, Ralph, I love Jesse, he's my favourite player, can't you give him some game time?" And he said, "Well, he's leaving in the summer anyway." So, look, I've got to be honest, I agree with Lingard being pissed off about not being allowed to go if he is pissed off, but I don't agree with him moaning about being disrespected on that video. This is a manager that's quite blunt. Look what he said about Martial. He's also said about Ronaldo not being happy and why couldn't a young player come off. I think he's a bit too blunt at sometimes, but sometimes that bluntness is quite refreshing because, you know, under Ollie, he would never say a word. It was just very, very, very bland answers. So, what do you want? Do you want the truth or do you want lies? And the reality is, Lingard is going to leave in the summer. And I think Rangnick has a reputation for not using players that much who don't want to commit themselves to the club. That doesn't mean he won't use them, but would you be picking Lingard ahead of anybody at the moment? So, you know, I think that's the bad... If there was any truth in that, I'd be frustrated with Lingard, because I'd be like, hold on a minute, who are you going to moan to about Rangnick saying that? You know, were you going to try and get Ed Woodward to tell him off for saying it? There's no issue with it. There's absolutely no issue with a Man United manager saying he's going to leave in the summer anyway, because he is going to leave in the summer. As things stand now, Pogba's going to leave in the summer. It's not a secret. You know, if you don't want to leave in the summer, sign a contract. You know, it's not like there's not been a contract offered to you. So I've got no issue with Rangnick saying that. I think this is... And look, to be honest, we don't know whether it's true. As I say, not everything we get fed by the press is actually true. But if a player was disappointed in a manager saying that, this is the pampered nature of the modern footballer. You know, managers can say things. I mean, if Rangnick wants to come out and say, I didn't pick Donny van der Beek because I think he's crap, in a nice way, you know, people would react to it badly, but, you know, would it not be the truth if it was the truth? I think that football has become so political in press conferences that actually it's quite refreshing when a manager tells the truth, but then the snowflake society just goes mad about it. Oh, you can't say that, you can't say that. You can say that. You can say that. What about Pogba? He's off in the summer. How come he's going to play? Well, John, I mean, ultimately... you're right, but one size doesn't fit all, does it? I think when you've got a player like Jesse Lingard, who's a squad player anyway, and he won't sign a new contract, or he wants to leave in the summer, does it really make sense to start a player who's a squad player anyway, who's not going to sign a new contract? I don't think it does. When you've got a World Cup winner and one of the, you know, most exciting midfielders in the world, whether you agree with that or not, a lot of people would agree with that, and you are fighting for 4th place, you know, you might be more tempted to use him. I think it just comes down to ability. Big up to you, Mark. In your honest opinion, what will be the state of our squad by Monday when the window closes ins and outs, says Amit. Honest opinion, and get your chats in. I'm more than happy to read them out. Where do I think we'll be come close on Monday? And we will have a big stream for you for transfer deadline day in the afternoon through till close. Well, Martial's gone. I think Lingard will go. I think Lingard has to go, by the way, now, because there's clearly unhappiness, and you shouldn't keep a player in them situations anyway. So I think Lingard will go. I think United. What I would say to Jesse is, if there's any truth in this, United are probably dragging their feet on this because it benefits them, so that they don't get pressured to buy anybody. So I think Lingard will go and Donny will go. So Martial, Lingard, and Donny I think will go. I still think there's a chance to bring a player in. I do. I think a Zakaria or Kamara could happen in a day. I think it could happen in 6 hours. It literally could be. Pick up the phone. These are the terms. Do you want them? Yes. Right. Mönchengladbach, there's 5 million. Marseille, there's 10 million, whatever. So I think those deals could happen as late as Sunday night. I think they can happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if we lost another player as well. I really am a little bit concerned about Eric Bailly because I think he's pushing to get a move. So let's see. Just go by Marley. Whole midfield job done, says Sean Turner. I don't know how they're doing, Sean. I know Ivory Coast are out. Hey Mark, maybe I missed this, but do you know what kind of midfielder Ralph wanted this midfield window? Hopefully a defensive one. Yeah, 100% Asset. You're absolutely correct. This is why people like Zakaria were mentioned to us very early on in January by Fabrizio as a player that Rangnick had mentioned and spoken to in December. Hadara is definitely a player he wants. Kamara is, you know what? If I was talking about Zakaria, Hadara and Kamara, no doubt Zakaria is definitely a player that Rangnick likes. No doubt Hadara is definitely a player that Rangnick likes. Kamara is, for me, is one I've never been actually that sure about whether we're in for him. It feels a little bit to me like, you know, like Gabriel went to Arsenal. We were linked to him as well. And French outlets were chucking our name in the hat. But I got told afterwards United were never seriously in for him. So with Kamara, I'm not 100% sure that we are in for him. I'd probably go as far as what Romano said on Monday on the show, that United like him and they're interested, but there's not been any negotiations. Can't believe Matt is still at the club, says Danny. These so-called businessmen are shocking. I mean, why is Mata here, Danny Palmer? I don't know. We're sending out Martial and Donny, but keeping McFred and bringing in no one. I hate this board so much, says Oz. Still time, Oz. Still time. What I want to know is, what's the point in getting an interim manager if you're not going to back him? This man has signed so many superstars already, says Ethan. And what do you think about Garner coming back and possibly playing the CDM role next summer? Says Ethan. I mean, ideally, you bring a young... I think this is a great question. Because as somebody who's seen United bring through the youth with Sir Alex and seen that class of 92 side come through, it didn't come through in the 95-96 season. That's not when they came through. You can't win it with kids. Alan Hansen. That wasn't... We didn't just start handing out debuts at the start of that season when we lost to Villa. Nicky Butt had been playing for United for years. Gary Neville had been playing a little bit. Beckham, I think, scored in the Champions League in, was it 94 or something like that? Scholes had been playing a little bit as well. They'd been gradually brought into that team over the previous 2 or 3 years before actually being let loose in that 95-96 season. When you're developing a young player, you want to do it in a position of strength. And you look at that class of 92 side, you're gradually feeding in Nicky Butt, David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, surrounded by Paul Ince, Roy Keane, Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona, Steve Bruce, Peter Schmeichel, and Dennis Irwin. You know, they're coming into the team with those players around them. With Garner, I actually would like to... Ideally, he comes back from Forest in the Championship. Maybe Forest get promoted, or maybe Bournemouth get promoted, and he goes there for a season in the Premier League. So for me, Garner, as long as he's playing first team football in the Premier League next year, I would actually put him on loan again. Because that, I think, is best for his development, to just keep playing. Because the minute you start bleeding him in at Man United, the pressure's on. And I don't think we've got the right surrounding for Garner at the moment. If you brought Garner into that United midfield at the moment, the whole world would be resting on his shoulders. Because he needs to be the solution. He needs to be the solution. Very similar situation at United. When we were bringing Nicky Butt in, he was quite an exciting holding midfielder, box-to-box, whatever you want to call him. But we had Paul Ince and we had Roy Keane. We had 2 of the best midfielders in Europe. So there wasn't a massive amount of pressure on Nicky Butt. It was like, well, you've got Ince and Keane anyway, you know, and you just come in and there's no pressure. You bring Garner into that midfield and it's like, oh, he's not good enough. You know, we need to sort our midfield out, and then Garner comes into a position of strength is what I would like to see. Because look what's happened with Mason Greenwood. When Mason Greenwood first came on the scene, there was no pressure. You know, we had Martial and Rashford doing well, and he was playing well and scoring goals. This season, we're not playing well, and Greenwood's starting to get stick again because there's an expectation that he needs to be doing a lot better. He's still only 20. He should still be surrounded by a performing side that he can be nurtured in. And this is the danger with youth, when they have too much pressure on their shoulders because the team's not performing. Is there a chance that Lingard's going to Everton, as Man United rejected the offer from Everton, might see the Dele Alli Lingard duo? I think Everton would be a good move for Jesse. You know, as long as it's financially viable for United, I don't really care where he goes. I've got no preference where he goes. As long as he goes, I think it's right for him. It's right for us. But yeah, you know, I certainly would go back and say that I think that if we're letting 3 players go, and it looks like 3 players are going, at least Martial, Lingard and Donny, you've got to bring somebody in. It's all I've ever spoken about this transfer window is logic. Logic is what matters. I know logic and United's board don't go hand in hand, but if you're letting Donny go, Martial go and Lingard go, all of which have been consistent bench players for Man United, who do you replace them with? There's not really anybody. Mabry, Alanga, he's still got one space there. And that's, for me, what logically we're surely going to bring a midfielder in. I will not be surprised if we don't. I'm not going to guarantee that we will. But logically, and the fact that Rangnick wants one. If Rangnick had come out and said, I don't want to buy anybody in January, it's just about removing players, we're fine with what we've got, I might have thought about it. But it's well known that he wants somebody. It's well known that we're clearing players out. It's the most logical thing ever that we will bring a midfielder in by Monday, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did. But obviously we're just going to have to wait and see. But logically, yes, at the moment it doesn't look like anything's happening, but that can change very, very quickly. How do we get rid of the Glazers, says Marco. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really want to talk about the Glazers because it winds a lot of people up. But I remember what somebody said on one of the Super Chats about 2 years ago, and it always resonated with me. The Glazers won't go until they've bled as much as they can out of this football club, and there's nowhere left. There's nowhere left for them to do except for sell the club. Unfortunately, I think if you think about the scenario whereby Manchester United are, what would it take for United to be in a position where the Glazers have taken us for everything they can and they have to sell? We've made a lot of money as Manchester United brand this year, despite the fact we've been crap on the pitch. You know, that Ronaldo, you know, social media growth, we're number one on TikTok. They call it social media growth, but social media growth to Manchester United is an ability to go to brands and say, look, we can put you everywhere. So they'll still have masses of money rolling in, and therefore there'll still be an increase in the value. Manchester United's value has probably gone up this year, even though our laughing stock has gone up as well in relation to rivalry. So I don't think the Glazers would be looking at it now saying, oh, United are doing bad on the pitch, we need to sell. So if we can still be a growing brand when we're bad on the pitch, how bad do we have to be to not be a growing brand? And that's what worries me about the Glazers selling. If we're still making money when we're not doing well, how bad do we have to be on the pitch for them to not be making money? And how much damage has to be done for that to happen? You're probably talking about a team that starts battling for 8th that's not in Europe. That's when the money starts to dry up. How likely is it that we get ourselves into that position? I don't think it's that likely. But as fans, we won't enjoy this fighting for 4th every year and being in the Europa League. We're not going to enjoy that, but that will still allow money to roll in for the Glazers, that they'll be content. But there is a doomsday scenario. Of course there is. The doomsday scenario for me would be, and a situation I dread, is that if we finish in the Europa League spot this year, Ronaldo goes, we struggle to bring in talent. Next season, we're nowhere near top 4 again, and you're suddenly running round with a side where Bruno and Varane are getting itchy feet, and they decide to go, and you don't replace them either. In a couple of years, you might have a team that you look at and go, it's just not that. It's worse than it is now. Where you know you can't compete for top 4 because the players aren't good enough. So that's the doomsday scenario, and it shouldn't happen. But it's not inconceivable in 2 years that Ronaldo, Varane, and Bruno have gone and not been replaced with good players, and then you're in big trouble, aren't you? If you're not, and I think at that point you start to get to unthinkable situations where maybe a Mason Greenwood or a Marcus Rashford are handing in their transfer notice to go and play for Barcelona or someone like that because they want to win the big prizes. It's an unthinkable doomsday scenario, but it's not an impossible one. I don't think it's likely, but it's something that a contingency of a football club should always have. In 2 years' time, if we kept being in the Europa League, or worse, didn't even qualify for that, we wouldn't be able to keep people like Bruno, Varane, and Ronaldo would be long gone. And then you're looking at people like Rashford and Greenwood, who might go, look, I love Manchester United, but I've got a short career. I want to play in the Champions League. That could happen, and it's not sensationalist. And under this owners, it could happen. I don't think it will, but it could. If United fail to get top 4, a lot of players would leave. United would fail to replace them in the summer, so top 4 next season would become a challenge too. The problem is it's almost like a pincer effect, isn't it? To anybody who thinks that scenario I've just said there is not possible, United are like in a vice. You've got Man City, Chelsea, and Liverpool at the top, who are a long way above us, putting pressure on us, and we can't get near them. And underneath us, you've got Newcastle, maybe Aston Villa, Arsenal, maybe Spurs. I'm not saying all of them, but they're putting pressure, trying to close the gap as well. And then you just get squashed and fall out. And that's the thing with United. It's coming at you both sides. So yeah, we need to be smart. We need to have a plan, and it's the old ruthless and aggression again, isn't it? But I agree with Alpha Gaming. I don't necessarily think we're at the bottom of the barrel yet. I think some people think we're on, under Ollie, I think people thought we hit rock bottom under Mourinho and we're on our way back. That was a false dawn. I think what we, if the bottom of the barrel was Mourinho when he got sacked, I think we just swam around in the bottom of the barrel making a lot of noise and pretending. I don't think we actually started climbing out. And I think we're still there under Rangnick, and the next 6 months under him, and then the next, what we do in the summer, will decide whether we're climbing out or whether we're staying down. So, I said it a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think a lot of people really took it on board, and maybe I am wrong, but I feel that where United are at the moment could potentially be the worst position we've been in since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. Not in relation to the squad, it's fantastic, but it could be this. Things could be bad. We might not know. We don't know how deep the wound is. It might just take a couple of stitches and we'll be fine. It might need major surgery. We just don't know at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainties. And even going on recent results, what a win it was. What a winner it was against West Ham. But we were 30 seconds away from a really disappointing draw. So we just don't know. And the positives are, you look at those next 5 games and you think, oh, if we take 15 points from that, we're going to really put a lot of pressure on everybody. Can we take 15 points from Burnley away, Southampton at home, Brighton at home, Leeds away and Watford at home? Well, we should do. We bloody well should do. With that crowd, we should be taking 9 points from the home games, and then you've got Burnley and Leeds, who are crap this year, away. Why shouldn't we take 15 points? But you just don't know with United. Would you consider Sir Jim Ratcliffe as a buyer? He's criticised how the club is run and will consider if there is a decent foundation, ambitious owner for Nice. I don't think he's looking to buy Manchester United. I think he's looking to do some business with Man United. What do you think we need in the summer to get us to start climbing out, Mark? Look, I don't like looking at the summer. I've said this before. I don't like talking about the summer when we've got a situation right here, right now that most clubs would kill for. The only clubs that wouldn't want our position are Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool, because they're above us. Every other club in the Premier League would love to be Manchester United. We are 4th. We are in the Champions League. We are in the FA Cup. And we've got a lot to be excited about. But why is our fan base not excited? Because they're scared. They're worried about what might go wrong. So I don't want to talk about the summer in relation to what we need, JD. Welcome to the Members Club, by the way, Matty Ross. Thanks to everyone who joins the Member Club and supports the channel, by the way. Get a little badge next to your name, which changes each month. Appreciate that. Eric Bay got an 8.2 against Egypt, but will still get dropped for Maguire. Yeah, Boris, this is why he wants to go. So, yes, I can tell you what I think about the summer, but what I think about now, and it's probably what most of you think as well, I'm thinking about now, and I'm thinking about we need a midfielder now to help what happens in the summer. Because what happens in the summer is dictated to by what happens now. If we're in the Champions League in the summer, that situation is a far better diving board for the new manager or Rangnick to work off in relation to recruitment and removal of players. If we're in the Europa League, that's a different scenario. If you're in the Champions League, you're almost starting to climb out and you can add to that. If you're in the Europa League, you're almost sinking again. So the summer is very hard to say what we need if we don't get what we need now. And this is what the next few days is all about, really. Ivory Coast got knocked out on penalties, by the way, Egypt. But, the time is now, and I think there has been seasons in the past where it's over, really, and you're thinking about the summer. But this season's not over. It really isn't. And I think Rangnick will keep drilling that in as well, because this might be his only 4 months managing Man United. So there's a lot to be focused on, even if you can't be excited about it. Apparently United are working on a 5-year deal for Kamara, but currently working out if it is worth them getting the deal done before the window closes, says Apollo. Well, I don't know where this is coming from, Apollo, but as I said many times before, I don't feel that there's any truth in it at the moment. I don't think Man United are working on anything at all at the moment, because I think that we are working on removing players before we even look at that. But we might get kicked into action, because I certainly do think that we could get forced into action by an Aston Villa or a Roma pushing for Kamara, because Villa will have the money. I just think he won't fancy Villa over us because it's not Champions League football. Red Devil says, Mark, there's been so many sources talking about Kamara to us. Yeah, but none of them's credible, mate. In my opinion, none of them's credible. I want it to happen, but what happened with Alvarez at Christmas? Loads of sources were speaking about us. I know for a fact Marseille want to sell him in January because they're going to get no money in the summer. So straight away, that concerns me. That what one club gets linked to every single. We will be in the race for Haaland. We will be in the race for Haaland, even though we're not going to get him, because adding Man United into the mix just makes it more high profile. So at the moment, I'm not getting too excited about any player coming in, but there's still 5 days left, and without a shadow of a doubt, these deals can happen very quickly. So at the moment, if you want a percentage with Kamara, I'm probably less than 30% at the moment. The Paulinho rumour on Twitter is apparently not true. He's a decent holding midfielder. He played in the Euros, obviously plays for Sporting Lisbon. He's more in the sort of Rodri mould. He's that sort of a player. He'd be brilliant, because when I think about Rodri, I think about the Carrick sort of holding midfielder. Very cultured on the ball, reads the game well. I do like Paulinho, and I've got nothing. We've got Delot, Bruno, Ronaldo, Portuguese connections at United do well. I would really like him, but again, I do not see anything happening there because I think Sporting Lisbon would want considerable money, and I do not think Man United. I don't think we'll get Hadara for the same reason. I don't think United want to spend any more than 10 million on a midfielder, even if they get one, and that's why it would be Zakaria or Kamara. I doubt we would spend anywhere near that sort of money when we've potentially got a different manager coming in. And to be honest with you, I'm not, I'm more than willing to be positive about United's board if they do good things. I don't live my life just trying to be constantly negative. There's no point. Unfortunately, that board makes us constantly negative because they're so crap at what they do most of the time. But I would agree that signing a Ruben Neves, as much as I would like him, or a Paulinho, as much as he's quite exciting, or a Hadara, wouldn't make sense in January because you're spending more than £30 million on a player for a manager that probably won't be here in the summer. There is a tipping point with the value where you start to go, that's a lot of money to invest on a player that maybe the new manager won't like. But when it's somebody who's like Kamara or Zakaria, who are so cheap that, and I said this about Zakaria, so I'll use it with Kamara. If you buy Kamara, right, and you get him for, I don't know, £8 million, 10 million euros, okay, £8 million. The minute you've bought him, you've made your money back 3 times because he's a £25 million player. So even if he comes to Man United and just does okay, there'll be a team who will spend 25 million on him in 2 years anyway. So there's the sell-on value straight away, and the same with Zakaria. So there is, it makes a lot of sense on many different levels. To bring in a Kamara or a Zakaria now, because mainly they give us options as a holding midfielder. They also increase value the minute you sign them, and a new manager isn't going to go mad about it, because even if they didn't fancy Kamara, you would just say, so you're telling me you think Kamara is better than Fred or McTominay or Matic, and that just simply isn't going to be true. Not for all three. He's not going to be worse than all three of them because Matic is basically retired anyway, and Kamara is young as well. So there's a lot of development that you could do with a player like that. I'd be stunned if a Ten Hag or a Luis Enrique or a Pochettino came into the club and went, I'm disgusted that you've bought Kamara and he's worth 3 times what you bought him for, and he's 22. Like, I don't even know if he's 22. He might be younger than that. But there's so much a manager could do with a player like that. There's still lots and lots of development. And you could still buy a Declan Rice. You could still go and buy a player like that. Sule is the German Maguire. I read, Sule is obviously a Bayern Munich player, and I can't pronounce his name right. By all accounts, he's going to be leaving on a free in the summer. Now, I read something. I'm always for both sides of the story. I read something today I could not believe. Apparently, Sule, or however you pronounce it, has clocked the fastest sprint speed in the Bayern Munich team this season. Now, I'm stunned because I have seen Bayern Munich play, and he turns like a lorry. Like, I can't believe he's the quickest player clocked in the Bayern Munich team this year, considering they've got Kingsley Coman, Gnabry, people like that. I think if he came to the Premier League, he would get exposed because he doesn't move around quick enough. But I can't argue with the fact that he's obviously got a very quick sprint speed. My only thought is there's sprint speed and there's agility, and maybe when he gets going, he's very quick, but he's not very quick. I mean, Boateng's probably quite quick when he gets going, but God, he needs one of them slow vehicle turning things. So maybe that's Sulai's thing, because when I've seen him, I just don't think he manoeuvres very quick at all. But he's available for free, and Rangnick likes him, so he could be coming to United. And if he did come to United, I would say give him a chance. I didn't want Matic, but I said give him a chance. If they've never played for United and they come to United, you've got to give them a chance. Do you think both United and Rangnick are reluctant to sell Donny and want him to stay till the summer as they have a plan of getting Ten Hag in? Donny came into prominence under his management, says Rangnick. On Donny and Martial, it doesn't really matter about the new manager because we're not selling either of them anyway. They're going on loan with no loan to buy option. So Martial will be back in the summer and Donny will be back in the summer. So we may as well loan them out and let them play because they're not playing. So it suits all parties. Donny and Martial desperately want to go and play football. Let them do it. Manchester United are happy to let them go as long as we get their wages covered. And Rangnick would probably like to keep both players, but ultimately he only wants to keep them so he's got a big squad, and the squad's too big anyway. So Donny will be coming back in the summer, whether it's Rangnick, Ten Hag or anybody, and he'll probably be given a chance. And the new manager will have the authority to say, I want to give him a chance and have a chat with him and try and persuade him, or he'll say, let's sell him. So I'm happy with that situation. Alpha Gaming, thank you for the super chat, appreciate that. And Red Devil TV says, Mark, would you take Renato Sanchez as a box-to-box midfielder next to a proper CDM like Paulinho, Rice, considering we need two midfielders? Yes, I would. I like Renato Sanchez. I like Franck Kessie as well. I'd love to see a midfield three of Kessie, Paulinho, and Polina and Bruno. I'd like to see a midfield three of Declan Rice, Renato Sanchez, and Bruno. I'd also like to see a midfield three of Ruben Neves, Tielemans and Bruno. So there's lots of combinations, but there is something quite consistent there. I'd like a specialist number 6 and a number 8 who can also provide defensive support. But we do need two holding midfielders as well. And you know what? In fairness to McTominay, I'm still convinced his best position is a number 8. Everything he does good is on the edge of the box. You can't get there as a 6. So I don't often praise McTominay, but I would praise him on this point and say, why are we trying to mould him into a number 6? His best attributes are so clear. I've spent a lot of time watching McTominay giving him 5s or 4s out of 10 because I can't see anything. And then a couple of times this season, Burnley in the second half against Brentford, and I know they're both lower level teams and he doesn't do it against the top half teams very often, but everything I've ever seen him do good and a couple of games against Leeds has been driving forward, getting a shot off around the edge of the box. So why are we trying to turn him into a number 6? Because he won't ever be able to do that there. So I don't know. We need two holding midfielders, really. We do, because I don't believe McTominay should be turned into a number 6. Fred's not a number 6 and Matic is going to retire. So really, we need two number 6s. I'd get Declan Rice if he wasn't so expensive. I must admit, Matty, I'm a little bit concerned about spending big money on another English player. It's not Rice's fault, but, Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, Jadon Sancho, we've not really had a great hit success with spending loads of money on English players. But, that doesn't mean he wouldn't be a good player. I do like Declan Rice. Kimmich is staying at Bayern, so, yeah, we won't be getting him. I'd like Neves as well, Zero Blade. But remember, it's the same reason why we need a midfielder in January. It's not just because we need a holding midfielder. We need options. If you buy Declan Rice in the summer and he pulls his hamstring in the first game and he's out for 2 months, you're back where you are now. We need options. First of all, we need a specialist CDM, and then we need an option that can play when he needs a rest. This is the scary thing for me. We don't have a holding midfielder, and we don't have a backup for a holding midfielder. So, it's a ridiculous situation to be in, because most teams in the Premier League, whether they're Norwich or Man City, will have 2 options in the holding midfield position, and we haven't got one really. everybody we use there is either past it, can't play 90 minutes, or a square peg in a round hole. So, yeah, interesting. There's definitely more than one person watching, 9. Will you watch a United game just to see Ronaldo play? Says Alexander. And the club is making me swap Maguire for a Manscaped package, says NFL. Will Garner be loaned again next season? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have a problem with Garner being loaned again next season. But the most important thing with a young player is to provide a clear development path, and that development path should not be changeable. It should be long term. Whoever's keeping an eye on Garner or Laird or Ahmad should basically have a plan for 3 years. They should be going, well, look, he was on loan last year in the Championship, he did well. This year in the Championship, he's established himself and is doing better. Next year, we need to see what he does in the Premier League. And then the year after that, we maybe bring him back. There should be a 3-year plan for a loanee. Get them established in the Championship, get them established in the Premier League, and then start introducing them to United. Chelsea have been masterful at this. They've been really good at it. And, you look what they did with Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham and Tamori and others, Reece James as well. We can't just be, he's doing well in the Championship after 6 months, let's chuck him in the first team. That's when things fall apart. Racehorses are a great lesson in how to nurture a young horse to be a champion. You don't just throw it into race after race after race. You've got to allow it to build confidence and progress, because you chuck a young racehorse into the Grand National or Cheltenham and they get absolutely battered, that can knacker them up forever. Paddy McNair is a prime example, if anybody remembers Paddy McNair. I don't know where he is now, but people always take the piss out of Paddy McNair. He was a young centre-back stroke full-back that we had at United under Van Gaal. And I actually was really excited about him. He played in a game against Everton at Old Trafford, and David De Gea got man of the match. He was brilliant. But Paddy McNair played really, really well. And there was a lot of excitement around him. And he did play well. And he looked like he was a player that could develop. And what happened? He got benched. He got subbed a couple of times after half an hour by Van Gaal. And he never recovered. Never recovered. Confidence was gone. Ended up in the lower, Championship or whatever. Now, I personally don't, I think he had the potential to be a lot better, but I think, we mismanaged him and we knocked his confidence. Brandon Williams in really good form at Norwich, says Nate H. I'm not sure about Brandon Williams, to be honest. I've never been quite sure about him. Maybe he's found his level. Maybe he will be able to go higher level. I think he's a right back anyway. I don't like right-footed left backs. Maybe that was the problem with him. But look, again, it's an example of another player who's on loan playing regularly, which is what we need to do with players like that. So, Williams is a right back playing at left back. Yeah, and that's the problem, Hader, for me. Really, it is. He's on 75 grand a week. That's another example of, well, fair play to him. High five, Brandon. United again, idiots, absolute idiots. What they pay in wages. Paddy McNair's at Middlesbrough now. They're doing quite well. He might be playing against us in a week on Friday then. Anyway, look, I've really enjoyed the show tonight. Please smash a like on the video and subscribe bottom right hand corner. Remember, you can get your Manscaped goods, men. They are for men. We have the nose trimmer and we have the ball trimmer. Trim the grass to make the yards look bigger. You can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code United Stand. So big shout out to Manscaped. Trim your grass to make your yard look bigger. Fantastic products, and they do make a big difference, if you know what I mean. I'll speak to you all late. Well, look, if anything happens, I'll go live, but if not, morning show at 10 a.m. Take care, everyone. I've got a crack. Just end of the show as well. Big shout out to Manscaped. TUSFC beats United this afternoon in the FA Cup. Basically, FIFA 22 career mode. There's a United Stand team that I've been doing for a while on Twitch. FA Cup semi-final against United. They put their reserves out. They disrespected us and they lost. So tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're in the FA Cup final. It's going to be epic. I'll remind you about it tomorrow, but I probably won't sleep tonight. I'm excited. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Really enjoyed the chats. Lots to look forward to. Lots of excitement. Let's hope United can add to that excitement over the next few few days and then into February. I mean, imagine if we brought a holding midfielder in and then all these games that are winnable in February, we could have top 4 tied up with a new midfielder. Let's see what happens. Speak to you all soon.